Emerging Europe has been looking at the development of the tech sector for almost a decade now, and it has become clear that security, amazing digital infrastructure, sometimes or oftentimes better than physical infrastructure, innovation, and most importantly, talent, have helped most of the 23 countries triple or even quadruple, in some cases, their gross domestic product since the beginning of the millennium. Today, we are releasing a new report looking at the IT landscape called The Future of the IT Sector in Emerging Europe, where we investigate the growth of the sector and look at the future potential of the sector in Emerging Europe. We also analyze the performance of individual countries and compiled an IT competitiveness index, looking at various indexes and matrix and indicators that are fair for all countries, both those that are big and also those that are small. Now, the headlines from the index are that Poland's IT sector is the most competitive across the region, followed by Estonia's, Czechia's, Hungary's, and Romania's. Our research also shows that Ukraine, which has the biggest number of large IT companies, can still grow a lot more. The country's potential is virtually limitless. We also found out that there are now more than 2 million people employed in the sector across the Emerging Europe region. This is about half of the number of IT employees in India. But if we look a little bit deeper and check the number of IT specialists and professionals per 100,000 inhabitants, we will see that Emerging Europe's numbers are way higher. In some cases, 4 times higher, and in other cases, even like Estonia, for example, 9 times higher. We're launching the report today, and I have invited several experts to share their insights on the development of the IT sector in Emerging Europe. Several CEOs and C-level executives from companies like Sigma Software Group, Scale Focus, Yeti Group, Arabs Transylvania, Scient, experts who are passionate about the tech sector in the region, from large financial institutions. For example, the CEO of Raiffeisen Bank Kosovo, or the business development director at the tech subsidiary of the Warsaw Stock Exchange. I have also invited the vice president for ICT markets development of Egypt's information technology industry development agency to discuss how Egypt can actually help the region grow even faster and realize its potential and develop its value proposition. Last but not least, I have also invited the chief executive of the Global Sourcing Association and the chairwoman of the Global Technology and Business Services Council. So let me first turn to Piotr Wrzalik, managing partner at Unity Group, a Polish company that has been on the market for almost a quarter of a century and has delivered over 500 completed commerce transformation projects. So just give me 1 second. I'll connect with Piotr. 1 second. There he is. Piotr.
Yes, that's me. Hi. Hi, Andrew.
Yes. So welcome, and thank you very much for joining us. So like I said, Poland's IT sector is the most competitive one, and you guys have been looking at the sector for the last 25 years, almost 25 years. What has helped the sector grow in Poland for the last 2 decades?
So let me start with a personal background a little bit. So I'm based in Wrocław. It's a city of 650,000 people, just 3 hours drive from Berlin, similar distance to Prague. And when I moved here from my hometown back in 1995, a student looking for good academic opportunities, it was just another gray, sad, post-communistic monster with large blocks of flats made of concrete and very little to do other than studying and drinking cheap beer. And suddenly, 25 years later, just a couple of weeks ago, Wrocław has been recognized as #1 by Financial Times in the Global Cities of the Future ranking, between other middle and small cities category. So overall, it's a giant leap, and I've been witnessing it myself. So looking from this perspective, I believe that there were at least 3 major factors that explain why Poland has met such a dynamic growth in the IT sector. First of all, well, IT industry was a natural candidate for rapid growth. After Poland joined EU and gained access to common labor market, with the ability to deliver services remotely and improving telecommunications infrastructure, right? So secondly, Poland has the advantage of its location, bordering with the largest European economy, Germany, proximity of the Nordics, good road connections to Western neighbors, and last but not least, the population. Almost the largest across the board. Its workforce is relatively young and well educated, especially in the exact science field. So if you combine this all, many international enterprises found Poland the most attractive place to invest, to start local offices, BPO service centers. And also this became a great environment for local entrepreneurs like myself to start and grow their own businesses.
All right. Unity Group specializes in e-commerce, and Poland is also the home of the biggest e-commerce platform in the region, and I'm talking about Allegro here. What do you think can help that sector grow even further, and how you guys can also help?
So first, allow me to rephrase a little bit. Unity Group specializes in digital commerce transformation, and that indeed includes e-commerce. But digital commerce transformation is a much broader concept. It's an art of replacing outdated business models with smart digital solutions. But it's better to take an example. So if you were a traditional retailer or a wholesaler and you decided to start selling your products online, it would be simply e-commerce. That's a no-brainer. That's quite easy to do. Yeah, we can help with that, but that's what many companies do. But imagine you're a long-distance bus operator, and it's quite a boring business, right? So first you start selling your tickets online and via mobile app, boring again, and then you integrate your systems with train operators and local bus operators and electric scooters and bicycles for rent. And at the moment, you're able to offer your customer a possibility to plan the entire journey, point to point. And then you think, how about I start offering my customers tickets to local events like concerts, for example, based on what I know about the traveling habits, about the plans. At this moment, you are no longer a bus company. You have transformed your business entirely into a mobility as a service platform. And that's a real story of one of our clients, Omnibus.com from Finland. So as we have stated in the report, e-commerce will continue to grow in the region, fueled by increase in internet usage, penetration, post-pandemic trends, catching up with more developed Western markets. It will continue to be a demand booster for companies like ourselves, for IT services and expertise in this field. So with our experience gained over 23 years on the market, we can offer our clients both a best-of-breed technology solutions, but also advisory on picking the right strategy for how to enter online channels, how to improve existing solutions, but also how to totally transform their businesses into fully digital, globally connected platforms.
Piotr, thank you very much for all the insights. It was a pleasure having you with us today. I will connect with Ukraine right now, and I will speak to Valery Krasovsky. Thank you very much. To Valery Krasovsky, the CEO and the co-founder of Sigma Software Group, one of the 100 largest outsourcing companies on the IAOP list recently published by IAOP. Let me just find Valery here. There he is, joining me right now. There he is. Valery, welcome to our chat today, and it's great to have you here. So, like I said, Ukraine is clearly an ICT powerhouse, and it is home to the largest number of biggest companies or ICT companies in our regions. I believe 7 out of the 100 listed by IAOP are actually headquartered in Ukraine, and a few other companies have their delivery centers also in Ukraine. The report clearly shows that there is a lot of, there's a lot of room for growth in Ukraine. What do you think should be done or could be done to fully realize Ukraine's potential?
Hello, good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for inviting me. Ukraine has shown really good results in terms of growing IT business, and we have just reportedly reached the $5 billion for 2020 with 20% of growth comparing with 2019. That's an amazing story, obviously. And we all understand that as the world goes to digitalization everywhere, the IT companies will get more and more tasks. So that's why I think it's an amazing industry to support growth of Ukrainian economy, even during these hard times. When it comes to Ukraine in general, I would say that even during pandemic, luckily we are fighting pandemic in, I think, quite effective manner. At peak times, we had like 15,000 of cases per day for 40 million population, and currently we have like less than 3,000, which is, I think, a very good figure in terms of like if you compare it to other countries. Also, it's quite easy to travel to Ukraine for those who are brave enough to do that. I mean, in general, it's not like a big problem. I've been traveling to the US as well in November. It's okay. So it's there are less restrictions than in other countries, so that you could face-to-face meet your teams, and that's also amazing. I think that we have more than 200,000 IT specialists in Ukraine in total, and the main thing which is like blocking us from even further growth is help from the universities and from the companies. And we actually building a lot of cooperation between the universities and IT companies, helping them to with classes, with equipment, also with teachers, with certain practical business examples, how you should work, what should you do. We're also helping students to find out the bright R&D ideas, initiating startup contests where the students could show the startups and also realize their potential through building up new product companies, as we also have investment wings in our IT service company Sigma Software, which is called Sigma Software Labs. Thus, we are helping on early stage investments to bright Ukrainian ideas. In Ukraine, we have a lot of IT service companies, but we also have a lot of startups. One of the most well-known startups recently is GitLab, is a software development environment. The global company is 1,000 people and a huge valuation, more than like billions of dollars, and they might be doing the IPO soon. So we have a lot of bright talents in Ukraine, and that's why we support that through our venture ideas. But also, obviously, we do a lot of IT services in various industries like automotive, aviation, fintech, and many others.
So you are also one of the 100 companies. I'm talking about Sigma Software Group, one of the 100 companies mentioned or listed by IAOP. What is the recipe for success for such such growth?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think it's applied for in general for Ukrainian companies and to Ukrainians. But we are not only supplying teams to the customers; we also bring a lot of extra value. And this extra value is about the ideas that could help customers to increase the valuation of their businesses. In our customers, we have a lot of big enterprise companies like Volvo, IKEA, Scania, and others. And we also have a lot of product companies and also startups. And some successful, very successful startups. we could call Uber as a startup as well. So when we speak about the startups, it could be the enterprise as well, that a combination.
But
So
we mustn't forget about Grammarly, which also originates from Ukraine, right?
Yes, Grammarly is one of the Ukrainian unicorns. That's a Ukrainian company and also quite rapidly growing right now. So what kind of extra value we give to our clients? So first of all, we provide our enterprise clients with a lot of interesting ideas within those product companies, Ukrainian product companies we are investing to. So that could get custom development services from us, but also they could get solutions to their problems using most innovative product ideas from Ukrainians. And I think this extra value is quite unique for Ukraine. We are creators. The engineers love to create new things, not just doing the work according to the specification, to create something new. We have a couple of interesting cases when our customers have sold their companies to bigger companies using the creativity of our engineers, bringing much more value that they could do by themselves. They actually looking for this interesting business idea. So it's not like only IT services. It's more about doing business together. We also co-invest with our customers. We share the equity. We do many interesting things.
Well, it's quite interesting oftentimes when you hear that our developers, and I'm talking about emerging European developers, are often willing to provide more value than the client actually wants, and sometimes teach the client or educate the client what possible solutions can be used in the specific situation. Valery, thank you very much for joining us today. Stay with us, and I'll be going from Ukraine to Romania right now, and I'll be joining Voicu Oprian, the founder and CEO of Arabs Transylvania. Thank you very much, Valery.
Thank you very much.
Just give me 1 second. There he is. Voicu is with us already. Hello, Voicu. Very nice to have you with us today. So, like I said, we are now in Romania, emerging Europe's third biggest country. So there are several companies in our region that, I mentioned that at the very beginning, that have delivery centers in our region, but in fact, they have headquarters elsewhere. I know that Arabs Transylvania is actually very proud of being in Romania and being headquartered in Romania, and specifically in Cluj, which is a real city of the future. What are the biggest opportunities in the IT sector in Romania? And how IT companies in Romania can help customers from all over the world.
Yes, thank you for inviting, and thanks, Valery. You brought so many interesting topics on the table. Well, I'm also here in the position of the president of Transylvania IT Cluster, which is the biggest IT cluster in Romania right now, with more than 100 companies. And I can share from the general knowledge what is and what makes Cluj actually a hub. So, last year, Cluj was in the top 6 of European company, a most innovative city, awarded by European Union, European Commission. So, well, unfortunately, we didn't won the first prize, but we were really proud to be the first company in Eastern Europe. And that gives you some indication about how others see Cluj, at least, not only Romania. So, but moving a little bit back, we have 2 unicorns in Romania. One is UiPath, that is valued 35 billion right now, that was initiated in Romania, and now it's in the US, with the excellent core team here in Bucharest, Cluj, and some other cities. And also we have a young company that just reached 3 billion, in a city close to Cluj, doing mostly blockchain, and in that area. So you see 2 different ways, both innovative, both from different perspective. that can tell you something about what we can offer to our customers actually. And that's beside the great talent of engineers, I can say it's also putting ourselves in the customer shoes in the service area. So we are not providing just teams, augmented team, body leasing and whatever. It's more we put ourselves in the customer shoes and we develop solution and values for our customers. So that's briefly what we can bring to the table, and what brings Cluj on the table is actually the innovative and the approach to the customer, really close approach to the customer.
This is actually very interesting what you just said. How important is that sort of real collaboration and maybe educating sometimes the client that you work with, as opposed to having a sort of vendor client relationship? And how does a client, your client, benefit from a kind of more sophisticated collaboration model?
That collaboration model, from vendor to a partnership, really, that's something that we experienced in the last 20 years, when many companies experienced this in the last 20 years. And if I gave the example of our company, Arops Transylvania Software, that was founded here, we move from being a development center, to some companies being a real product development and R&D center for many companies. So they saw in us and here more advanced feature that we can offer to them and to their customer. And that means moving a little bit from just delivery to more to the product owner role, to the Scrum Master, more in the R&D, and with a close connection. So we even saw in many other companies the trend that where the companies set complete development centers here and only maintain the sales and marketing in different countries. And that proves you something, that some companies can work, in R&D in Arops, for example, or in some other companies, or develop themselves their R&D centers. There are pros and cons on each model, but the pillars on that model, it's first trust, then it's authenticity, and then it's innovative and the way of how we approach customers and the business, actually, the business of our customer.
Voicu, thank you very much for joining us today. So now from Romania over to Bulgaria, I'm being joined by. Thank you, Voicu. I'm being joined by Plamen Tsekov right now, the chairman of Scale Focus. And Scale Focus is actually one of the first companies that I saw firsthand when I visited Sofia a few years ago. So it's great to have you here. Let's have a quick look at the country, actually. So we're talking about a country that has less than 7 million inhabitants only, and I still remember that 2016 when Bulgaria was actually named the outsourcing destination of the year by the Global Sourcing Association, which rebranded in the meantime. Kara will probably refer to that. But what has happened in Bulgaria that the sector has grown so much?
Hello, Andrew. Pleasure to see you again, this time virtually.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Actually, the major reason was the talent. So the good hard skills, the agility, the adaptation went through those political changes and business changes we had in Bulgaria started 30 years ago. And but I think that this is very similar for the whole Eastern Europe, also for Romania, for Poland, as the previous colleague said. It's very simple. It's all the same kind of. But what was very specific for Bulgaria was some special traditions we had in computer manufacturing. and focus back in the days, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, in IT and math education, and forging up top talents in programming and computer science, early out even in the high schools. And I was kind of a personal product of that and witnessed that. I was inspired by computer programming back in the school days very early, which actually shaped my career in software and IT. Otherwise, I would most probably become a civil construction engineer or an architect due to my parents' occupation.
It's very interesting what you're saying, because the chairman of Tech Emerging Europe Advocate, who is a former Bulgarian president, Rosen Plevneliev, also actually graduated from a tech university with a diploma in AI. So that also shows that even one of the Bulgarian presidents has a diploma in IT or close.
Yeah, I mean, in addition, so it was also the BPO industry which picked up, because this was the outsourcing destination, and there the foundation were very similar, but different. Actually, there was a big number of high school language schools, because it was very modern back in the socialist time. Every person to know one or two foreign languages in order to travel. And actually, this was kind of implanted in the DNA. And there are so many schools in Bulgaria, in every small city, and there is a lot of English, German, French, Spanish. So actually, that kind of boosted up properly the more wider BPO industry, which was quite a fit and scaled quite a lot of many kind of services, including HRO, financial and accounting outsourcing, even research outsourcing. So that's why this combined also with the taxation rates, the bit-to-hour labor costs inside European Union and the local cost of living, that combination amplified the industry in the previous decade. And especially after Bulgaria was named as an outsourcing destination, there were quite a lot of new operations which new companies started in Bulgaria. And even Bulgaria is really attracting some youngsters from Western Europe, who have really a very interesting and lifestyle career path here in Bulgaria, along with the other youngsters.
Well, if you look at the quality of life, it's quite high in Bulgaria as well. So,
yeah, with all this combination, taxation, cost of living, and nowadays actually the industry is continuing to grow, even to be double-digit again in 2020. We are witnessing, on top of this, more Bulgarians who emigrated years back to Eastern Europe and North America to look for a higher tech job, but living in Bulgaria. So we see now the opposite trend, because in the 90s, in the early 2000s, the immigration was in the opposite direction. Now we see vice versa, which is actually a very good sign for a stable future in this industry here in Bulgaria.
And in the entire region, because in fact, a similar trend is actually observed in Lithuania, in Romania as well. So let's briefly talk about Scale Focus. You are a software development and digital transformation services company. So how do you see the prospects of this digital transformation process happening, both in emerging Europe and globally, and what kind of opportunities for growth it actually offers?
Yeah. So the pandemic and the lockdowns were a serious amplifier for both government institutions and local businesses in the region. So the government and municipalities are rapidly catching up with digital infrastructure services. And even in Bulgaria, there have been some quick wins, especially in the healthcare processes and also the remote education. The traditional businesses, what we see here in the region, are more and more looking for new modern platforms for e-commerce, CRM, ERP, automation, to make their operations more resilient and less manual and human dependent. And this trend is really going. But most of the IT industry is export-oriented here. And there is a kind of competition for resource and talent in this sector. The IT and BPO industry managed to switch very quickly to permanent remote work. And the big challenge is, again, the talent capacity and how companies are able to attract, retain, and further develop the talent which is outside their offices and the primary cities of operation in order to cope with the demand. Now every company in Bulgaria is trying to be a more not focused in one city, but actually to chase and attract and maintain the talent in every city in Bulgaria and even outside of Bulgaria, because this is the trend. Bulgarian companies are looking forward to establish their delivery centers outside Bulgaria, and actually we at Scale Focus in 2020 we opened a delivery subsidiary in Northern Macedonia, and currently we are very happy with the traction with the top talent there, and we are looking for appetite to expand in the other neighboring countries in the region, as there is, as you said, a lot of very good talented people who are returning to their homelands from Western Europe and North America. And we were not able to believe, if we are talking for this right now, I mean 20 years ago this was not the case. I mean, business-wise, pipeline-wise, we see right now a very strong interest in more and more requests for serving digitalization projects, innovation teams, remote delivery centers of excellence and innovations. Especially in January and February, it was a record high period. We have a lot of enterprise customers, which are mostly European, but also US, who are looking to move out their software development and research operations out of India and Asia in general. So this is the typical trend we detect, and tap into Eastern Europe in general, the Eastern European talent with either strategic local vendor relationship or own operation or combination of both. So there is definitely a trend we see for the whole Eastern Europe. Bulgaria is part of that as well. And what my colleague said before that, it's really key for every company to move the way from being a vendor to a innovation partner of their customers. And this is the big differentiation, and there are quite good substance for this in Eastern Europe. And this all, again, comes from the hard times which all the people were in the back 30 years. And it's a kind of a skill which was gained through for another purpose. And yeah, this is, as a summary, we see quite positive future, but accompanied by challenges of a different type.
This is very interesting what you just said, that Eastern Europeans have this additional skill that not everybody else actually has it. And this is the positive thing about those 50 years of communism.
When the lockdown started in March, so we were kind of laughing that there are big crowds in the stores, empty shelves and things like that in UK and the other countries. And we were not surprised. We have seen this 30 years ago. Okay, we know that this will go.
We'll manage. We'll manage. Plamen, thank you very much for all the thoughts and the insights. We're actually staying in Bulgaria still a little bit longer. Thank you, Plamen. We're staying a little bit longer in Bulgaria, but joining Stephen Burke right now, Chief Commercial Officer at Scient. Stephen, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Andrew, for the opportunity to be here.
So one of Scient's specialties is finance and banking. And when we look at emerging Europe, it is a region that once was completely underdeveloped when it comes to obviously the financial and banking sector, but kind of managed to leapfrog a few levels of that development, and is now very well positioned when it comes to the sector. What sort of potential do you see for further growth in banking and also financial services and fintech in the region?
Sure, great question. First, I'd like to start by talking a little bit about Bulgaria generally. So before co-founding Scient, I was actually a customer in outsourcing for more than a decade. And I've outsourced in Eastern Europe and other places in Asia, like India and Malaysia and so on. And I started outsourcing to Bulgaria when I was CTO of a company based in Paris. And I was struck by the work ethic And actually, the cultural match, being an American, I found that it was really easy to work with the Bulgarians. They had excellent language skills, and they had a strong work ethic and a focus on quality deliverables. So that really went a long way for me. I continued to outsource to Bulgaria in a number of other roles. When I was working back in India, actually, when I was working in Berlin, Germany, all the way up until the time that we founded Scient, when we realized that there was a strong opportunity in the market for a vertically focused IT services company. So to get to your question, fintech is really on fire in Europe. Some of the biggest names that we see today are coming out of Europe in general. If we look at companies like TransferWise, for example, that was founded in emerging Europe, right? And that's not the only one that's there. In 2020, we saw companies like Klarna achieving valuations of 10 billion, and France's Lydia raising a local record of 86 million in their Series B. That's in December 2020 in the COVID year, right? So it's really incredible. In these COVID times, fintechs are making financial services more accessible and easier to use than the legacy financial establishments, right? But the legacy players are still there. They still have a lot of capital. They still have a lot of business, and they have to step up their game. So we at Scient see the technology convergence of fintech and traditional financial institutions as being a key area of activity and growth. Some of the other areas that we're watching include expanded use of machine learning and AI for fraud and error detection, investment in the use of technology to optimize cost savings and to offset staff reductions, and the use of behavioral science and data harvesting for know your customer activities, which is now really especially important given the, I hate to use the phrase new normal, but the social distancing and the work from home activities that are keeping people separated.
When it comes to the financial sector right now, what are the biggest challenges that you see as a company that actually works with this sector a lot?
So great question. Fintech and banking is one of the three areas that Scient focuses on. The other two being transportation and logistics and travel and hospitality. And we see some of the same challenges in all three of the verticals, which is bridging the gap between these new, fast, flexible, easy to use, and often mobile technologies with the back-end legacy workhorses that really power the industries as a whole. So as the market demands change, our deep and broad industry experience helps our customers to unlock new opportunities as they emerge. And that's really because what we do is we're training and heavily investing in vertical awareness in our technologists, but we also have an institutional advantage in what we call our industry consultants. So we pair these strong technologists with people that have worked in the industry, worked in products in the industry and in product management and so on. And they're able to partner with our customers to come up with really innovative technology solutions that meet their business needs. And I think it's important to point out that Scient not only serves Western customers, but we have a significant number of customers in the East as well, including customers in China, Singapore, and Indonesia. And these countries have financial services industries that are investing heavily in traditional financial technologies and services, as well as new services for their significant population of unbanked and non-traditional financial customers. These customers are drawn to working with Bulgarian IT solutions providers such as Scient and in other emerging European companies. And that's a testament to the high level of technical skill, the excellent language skill, the low staff turnover, and the motivated professionals in the region. Being a very results-oriented group of people is one of the key things that makes emerging Europe so exciting.
Thank you very much, Stephen. It's really great to hear your feedback or your thoughts and insights as someone who first actually used those services as a buyer, as a client, and decided to actually invest their time and efforts to help the sector in the region develop further. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are now going to leaving Bulgaria and going to a very small country in our region, and we're going to speak to. I'm talking about Kosovo, actually. Let me just connect with the CEO of Raiffeisen Bank Kosovo, Robert Wright, who is with us right here.
Yeah.
Robert, welcome to our chat today. It's really great to have you with us. Robert is a great friend of Kosovo, but also of emerging Europe. So I wanted to ask you about the center that Raiffeisen International or Raiffeisen Bank International actually opened in Kosovo a few years ago. How did you manage to convince the headquarters in Vienna to actually bet on Kosovo? Tell us what it was like.
Sure, it was quite a battle. Thanks, Andrew. Good to see you again. Yeah, we have this operation called, as you say, Competence Center, which emerged by accident in a way 5-6 years ago when we got recognized within the group as having some capability and skill in our IT department. And so on a very ad hoc basis, they would literally borrow, not pay for, my staff to go over to Prague or Budapest or Vienna and fix short-term IT problems around the group. We just got this reputation for being good at that. And of course, my young staff loved a nice few days in Budapest or Prague or Vienna. So we're very keen to do that, very happy to do that. But it wasn't sustainable because I was losing good staff too often and too many occasions. So we decided to make it propose a support facility in a more structured way. And just many of the presenters tonight I can identify with where they're seeing the same skills and capabilities. And just Stephen just now really reflects what we see here in Kosovo, what he's seeing in Bulgaria, which was a very capable, very enthusiastic resource, particularly in IT. And it was also, in perhaps an unfortunate way, a very available resource because the age bracket of 20 to 30 here in Kosovo has something like a 50% unemployment rate. So this very capable resource was coming out of university and sitting at home doing nothing. So yes, we had the resources within the bank, but I couldn't keep using my IT people. So we had to create a separate subsidiary, which we called a competence center. And we recruited external people, not using existing resource within the bank. And today we have about 60 people in that function. And the growth potential is enormous. But to answer your question specifically, it took quite a while to convince my colleagues in much bigger operations like Russia, Ukraine, Hungary, Vienna, Austria, that we could do something better, quicker, cheaper than they could. And we certainly won on the cheaper argument. The resource and our internal price, if you like, was a lot cheaper than any external resource, certainly. And I mean by a factor of 5, we are cheaper than employing an IT consultancy, let's say. And I also want to stress, we moved from just pure fix-it operation to consultancy as well, and longer term, more strategic thinking. So we proved by results. It was tough. I had a lot of internal competition. I had my Bulgarian colleagues and my Romanian colleagues in particular thinking they could do the same. And actually just on your program tonight, we've seen exactly that. So you can see there was competition because we've just seen from Bulgaria that they can do that. But we delivered our promise. And the other two reassurances or factors were we were cheap and we have the supply chain of these people, because that was another skepticism or doubt that there's many more people in Romania, Bulgaria for the potential operation that could be 100, 200 people in 5 years' time, as it may well be. Do you have those in Kosovo? Unfortunately, in a sense, we do, because of that high unemployment rate. But what we also have now on a more structured basis is a supply chain from universities. We have a working relationship with them to produce the right sort of people, if you like. So the pipeline is more structured. And we also have a consultancy a local consultancy with an innovation hub, as they call it, that give training to potential employees of our competence centre as well. So we've delivered the promise. I think that's the way, with a lot of scepticism, but now we are proving and delivering our promise.
But these great examples are actually helping, attract people's attention to our region as well. So thank you very much for that. And you have been actually working not only in Kosovo, but you also worked in Albania. So if you look further afield, sort of, what is your take on the talent in emerging Europe, or in the sort of southern part of emerging Europe?
There's talent in the region, as we've seen tonight. I would say, I have to be careful how I describe Albanians, but I would say Albanians are more extrovert in a way, more creative. And I would put the Albanians in the customer-facing functions, perhaps marketing, sales, customer relationship. They're good at that. Whereas here in Kosovo, I think it's a little bit more intellectual, a little bit more introverted. And that's why something like our competence centre suits the personality of a Kosovar compared to an Albanian. I may get reaction to this after I've said that, but I think that would sum up the two countries. So if you combine the two, you have a very impressive organisation with the skills of both of those nationalities. And of course, we both speak the same language as well, which helps. But as we've seen tonight, the potential in this region is great, and it's a question of maximising it and perhaps selling it harder to the outside world, where the perceptions are perhaps more negative than they should be about this region.
Thank you very much for the last comment, because that is something that emerging Europe has been trying to do for almost a decade now. So we need everyone who has the same opinion as we do to make emerging Europe actually emerge, meaning become more visible globally. Robert, thank you very much for joining us today, and hope to see you soon in Pristina again.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we're moving back to Poland right now, and I'd like to connect with Paul Juszkiewicz, who's responsible for business development at GPW Tech, which is a part of the Warsaw Stock Exchange group of companies. Let me just connect with Paul. There he is. All right. Paul, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for the invite.
All right. So, we all know that the Warsaw Stock Exchange is by far the largest stock exchange in our region, and hugely supports the development of tech in our region. Recently, I mean, one of the sectors that is particularly important is gaming, and we've seen a huge increase in that sector in Poland as well. And when we look at the Warsaw Stock Exchange itself, it recently overtook Tokyo as far as the number of gaming companies listed at the stock exchange is concerned. So why is the development of tech so important for the development of the emerging Europe region?
Sure. Well, I think primarily the development of tech gives us this kind of catapults or headlines in terms of how we can develop an area of real expertise and specialization. Obviously, the headline you mentioned about Warsaw overtaking Tokyo really grabs people's attention, and that is something like I think you've mentioned in some of the other questions and conversations that our region needs. We need some recognitions from outside of Europe, from the States, from Asia, to show that we can offer this kind of expertise. So I think especially tech and gaming, as you said, has become one of these areas for the Warsaw Stock Exchange over recent years, and of course we want to capitalize on that. Taking it back, I think again, it's come up a few times during today's conversations. The basis for this is the most important resource, which is the people that we have. So again, it's the graduates from mathematics, from physics, which are obviously very well geared towards the tech industries and the gaming industries. And luckily, we have a huge talent pool within Poland and the emerging Europe, which we're able to capitalize on this. And of course, beforehand, we were looking at nearshoring, offshoring, primarily in IT outsourcing. But now again, I think a lot of people and investors especially are seeing that it's not only the cost side of things, which previously was perhaps the biggest catch, but the actual ability to innovate, to be really at the cutting edge of these technologies. And that's now the attraction rather than just purely based on a cost side. And of course, gaming is one of the areas, but e-commerce, big data, cloud computing, there's very many different, let's say, subsections to this, and that's all of the areas which we're looking at. But I think primarily, again, it's the success stories which really our region needs, and that's something which helps grab people's attention. So a couple of examples recently, of course, last year, the second largest IPO within Europe was on the Warsaw Stock Exchange, which was e-commerce, an e-commerce platform, Allegro, which was, again, very needed in terms of the publicity side. And of course, purely in gaming, the continued success of CD Projekt Red, which is the largest gaming company within the region, again, helps us, I would say, attract other gaming companies from outside of the region, because that's something which hasn't been happening up until now or a few years ago. But now people are seeing, and investors are seeing, that it's a very attractive place to help growth. And obviously on the Warsaw Stock Exchange, we have a standalone index, Week Games, which is purely dedicated towards the gaming industry. And that's been, since inception in 2019, growing by around 125%. So it just goes to show the rate of acceleration and potential in this market. And, I think these are all very interesting and attractive bits of information which can help benefit not only the Warsaw Stock Exchange, but other players within the emerging Europe region.
The Warsaw Stock Exchange, or GPW Tech, which is a subsidiary of the Warsaw Stock Exchange, is also diversifying its strategy through its own tech development drive. Can you share a few of the biggest initiatives that you have started with us today?
Sure. The Warsaw Stock Exchange is celebrating its 30th birthday this year. So it's that kind of know-how, expertise that we've gained over these 30 years building the capital markets here in Poland. I think we're getting to a point now where we are seen as a mature market, and we want also to share our experience and share our expertise with primarily countries, developing markets, like we were not so long ago. And I think from the tech side or from the technology area, we are looking to basically build products and solutions in-house, which primarily, of course, would be used within the Warsaw Stock Exchange and the group of companies that we have, but on a secondary scale, looking to, as I said, export, if you like, these solutions and these products. From our own experience, we've seen, and I'm sure many entities within the emerging Europe have had contact with vendors from Western Europe, the States, where let's say they have off-the-shelf software or products, which not always are very suited to more developing markets. So we're trying to build and develop technologies which are more flexible, perhaps a little bit more usable in this kind of market, and I think that's a big value added. A couple of examples of what we've been doing, what we're doing at the moment. One is GRC, which is a governance, risk and compliance system, again initially to be used within the Warsaw Stock Exchange, but already we're talking with partners both in Poland and outside of Poland, basically enabling organizations to stay compliant with regulations across a wide range of sectors, not only within finance or the capital markets. And another key decision, actually, which is more, let's say, dedicated to the capital markets, is the Warsaw Stock Exchange decision a couple of years ago to build and develop its own trading and matching engine, which is really the heartbeat of any stock exchange. So again, rather than go out to outside vendors from the, let's say, more mature and well-known stock exchanges in New York or London, for example, we've decided to build and develop this ourselves. And then now we're slowly starting to discuss with our partners within the region and further afield, because we can offer a much more, I would say, modular, flexible system. But of course, not substituting that in terms of the quality, in terms of latency, which is very, very important. but of course being still very competitive on price, which for a lot of stock exchanges which are developing is obviously still very very key. One other element which we're doing, or which we're trying to foster, is incubation opportunities, especially for fintech startups within Poland and the emerging Europe region, and again using our leverage of know-how and the financial element to help companies grow and develop. So all these kind of elements are, if you like, a roadmap for us to try and move forward and develop technology as the Warsaw Stock Exchange.
Paul, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing all the projects or initiatives that the Warsaw Stock Exchange is or has started now. I am going to leave the emerging Europe region for now, and I am going to connect with Amani Rabe, the VP for ICT Markets Development at the Information Technology Industry Development Agency in Egypt. Let me just connect with Amani. There she is with us. Thank you very much for joining us today. So I'd like to discuss, some people might be a bit surprised that Egypt is joining us today, but I think there is a reason for that. And I would like you to tell us how actually, Egypt's presence here makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Andrew, for the invite. And indeed, what you mentioned is that we are more a complementing element to the European region. So let me give you why we're here today, which is a question mark that might be in a lot of people's mind. Well, Egypt's location is like the middle of the world. So it's like we're the center of the world. We're very close to Europe, crossword. We're the same time zone. We're very close to Africa, and we're as well on the crossroads to the GCC countries, the Gulf and so on. So this has made us play a pivotal role in the emerging as well markets and the global markets that have been started. I've been previously working with the private sector for 25 years, and I've been complementing my offering with all the European offering. Another part that we complement with Europe is the abundance of talent pool. So we look at scale. You talk about languages, which we cannot compete with in Europe. We have a lot of languages in Egypt because being a touristic country, of course. However, the scale is what differentiates us. So we have over 60,000 graduates within the ICT sector, which is the sciences, the maths, the computer science, the engineering, and so on, annually. So that complements on a scale part. We are really proud of, as I said, the scale, the value that we provide. Not needless to say that we have as well the gateway of the infrastructure, which is the telecommunication. Most of the submarine cables are passing through Egypt, so we are very well connected, which I will get back to you later and why that helped as well in the COVID part. And of course, the labor arbitrage area, which is the cost effectiveness that we provide to you. So that has been one of the major reasons. A lot of other reasons, flexibility of labor law has been one of the major reasons why I came and opened one of the centers previously in my previous life here in Egypt to start with, as I said, and the value that we provide complementing the European offering has to do.
So tell us, I mean, you've already given us some examples of why Egypt, but can you also tell us how the sector has been developing over the years in your country?
Okay, so let me start first with a live example. One of the case studies that I want to showcase very quickly, which is the Vodafone Intelligent Solutions, which is the voice part of the Vodafone shared services part. They started in Egypt about 15 years ago, just as a very small unit within Vodafone Egypt, and to help in some of the IT services that they did and so on, and just export that to the whole Vodafone market. Now, Vodafone Intelligent Solutions, Voice of Egypt, is the center of excellence for all Vodafone globally. All the mobile apps, I think about 90% are done from Egypt. And that is because, as I said, the talent pool is there, abundance of talent pool. Talent pool with an edge of a language is also there. So because we teach in our public schools languages as well, of course, primarily with the numbers, they go from English to French to German, Italian, and Spanish on the same. So it goes with scale. It goes. This is how we descendingly go in scale. But however, most of the applications of Vodafone are now done from Egypt. So as I said, it has been seen, and previously being there as well, I know it has been a complementary part for the European region. They serve UK, Ireland, Germany, Italy, and Spain out of Egypt, as I said, with different numbers, of course, English being the highest. And for other as well, Egypt has been known for the French one. And as I said, why we're working on that is the value that we provide in governmental agencies like I'm in now, the IT Industry Development Agency, that we provide a lot of support to the sector. So this is a lot of subsidies, a lot of training programs that we provide the youth with. We try to bridge the capacity, the demand for capacity and skills with the supply that we have out of the university degrees. If they need uplifting on some of the skills, if they need uplifting or upskilling on some of the languages, we do that. And we provide that with, this is the support that we provide. We give subsidies to the new investors who are coming into Egypt. So this has been the area where we probably, as I said, we complete the picture. And needless to say that we have been the fastest growing industry in the Egyptian GDP. So we have provided 16% of growth, which nobody else provided in 2019, 2020. And this brings me back to one of the major important elements that actually were magnified only in 2020 with COVID, is that we have been amongst the most resilient locations. When people went back to home, the households are equipped for people to work at home. So we were able to turn over, I know some companies that in 2 weeks were able to let everybody work from home. And we're talking about Vodafone, that's 7,000 employees. So in 2 weeks, they were able to work at home. So we have been like a resilient or a business continuity center. So we're always there to complement, as I said, being on the same time zone, going up on the value chain. We don't provide the low-end services anymore. We are now positioning ourselves more into the higher on the value chain with the IT. Now we're promoting a lot of the AI with the data scientists, and we're doing a lot of the cloud computing. And this is how the government is supporting Egypt for that.
Thank you very much, Amani. So if you are an emerging Europe company and you're struggling with talent, definitely look at Egypt. So thank you very much. Now I have to say that London is calling. So we're moving from Egypt all the way to London to speak to Kerry Hallard, who is the Chief Executive at the Global Sourcing Association. She's also the Chairwoman at the Global Technology and Business Services Council. Kerry, welcome again. It's great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us on multiple occasions to look at what is happening in the region. So actually, what is happening in the region, how do you see it from London, actually? You've been looking at the region for quite some time already. And you've heard speakers today.
Yeah. No, so I know lots of those guys, so hi, and thank you for having me, Andrew. Lovely to see you again. Let's have a look at the backdrop, really, of what's actually happening globally, first of all, shall we? So obviously, when the pandemic struck, mass panic, but our industry performed incredibly well. So the response of the global technology and business services industry was phenomenal. So not only did partners and delivery destinations around the world keep the lights on, but they kept the wheels turning. And I think that needs to be hugely applauded. But more than that, that enabled the industry, because the partnerships and the collaborations delivered so well, trust grew, that the industry grew. There's been so much investment in what we term tech acceleration as a result of, having to mobilize to work from home really quickly, having to work in a much more digital environment, that, so many projects that have been waiting in the wings for years actually happened, and almost happened overnight, but happened successfully. So with that backdrop, there has been growth globally. And the projection is additional growth globally. Every company now should see themselves very much as being a technology company. So the opportunity for tech delivery work around the world is phenomenal. And of course, in Central and Eastern Europe, it's and emerging Europe is absolutely huge. So there's been an advent and a move towards more and more nearshoring anyway. That trend is continuing. So yeah, the requirement to access the technology talent pool in emerging Europe is high, and I predict it will continue to grow.
So we're saying that, I mean, we've said multiple times that this potential is, you know, is huge, but we see that there's also room for improvement in a number of different areas. So if you could give perhaps our companies, our governments some advice, what to do to make sure that the IT sector or the BPO sector, sort of more broadly, can thrive even more, what would that be?
Okay, I'm surprised Amani didn't mention it, and I hope I didn't miss you mentioning it, Amani, but there was a fantastic case study delivered yesterday from ITEDA and the work with the Egyptian government focused on digital skills. So during the course of the pandemic, they have trained the best part of 100,000 individuals in digital skills and making them available via freelancer.com for the open talent community. So I think that's an absolutely phenomenal example of what governments should be doing. And I really wish to say that I could see something similar happening in the UK. I can't. But I think this opportunity of open talent is absolutely huge. So individuals can work from anywhere. And I think that might be one of the challenges for the emerging Europe destinations. They have this mentality of we've got to have specific cities and we've got to have specific, hubs and centres of excellence, and the presence of location is really, really strong in emerging Europe. And I predict that to be something that might change quite significantly. And you need to have the mindset that you can actually work with any individual anywhere in any village that has got good digital infrastructure. So I think that's a massive, massive trend.
And any sort of legal changes that you would see, or anything related to how companies actually talk to potential buyers from the UK or from other countries? Is there any advice that you would give here?
Oh, right. So one of the things that I think is really changing, and these are comments that were made earlier. So Plowman from Scale Focus talked about being a partner, not being a vendor. Stephen from Scient talked about the importance of business acumen. So one of the things that I've constantly said to audiences in emerging Europe destinations is to carry on focusing on the soft skills. Yeah, you've got great technology skills, but there's huge importance on the soft skills, the communication, and that increasing business acumen. So what we're seeing amongst buyers here in the UK is that the responsibility is shifting from the tech department to actually it being a business decision maker, the business that makes the decision on the techs and the partners that they work with. And we also see there being a move towards a much more blended sourcing ecosystem, with companies looking to work with smaller best of breed partners. So I think that provides a great deal of opportunity for innovative, agile companies to partner on in.
Carrie, thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you very much. A huge thanks to all my guests. The report that we launched today is available for download free of charge on the Emerging Europe website. Also, if you are interested in the Emerging Europe region, follow our news page at emerging-europe.com. And if you are eager to make the Emerging Europe region a tech hub, a global tech hub, definitely apply to join Tech Emerging Europe Advocates, a global network of almost 20,000 tech entrepreneurs, experts, and investors. Thank you for joining us today.